Earlier today, Free League Publishing launched their Kickstarter for the One Ring second edition, and it is on pace to hit the highest funding campaign that they've ever put out on a crowdfunding platform in terms of dollars and backers. Today, we're going to be talking with two very important folks behind this project, the game designer, Francesco Nepitello, and Martin Takaichi, the project lead behind this line for Free League. But before we do that, I want to remind folks that if you are as excited as we are for the One Ring RPG, make sure to hit that like button and share this session with friends that you know that would be excited as well. And if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button and that little bell notification that'll let you know every single time we go live or upload new content. So let's bring everybody on, and we'll answer any questions that you might have. And talk a little bit about the Kickstarter though first, and let's bring everyone on. Joining me for a co-chair is the one and only Andreas from Sweden Rolls. Andreas, thank you so much for coming on, being a co-chair for this.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely. I wouldn't do it without you. We've had you on previously with, and it was such a great time. We thought let's bring you back on. But let's talk to the real stars of this session, the folks that are just blowing up Kickstarter, and that is, of course, Martin and Francesco. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Congratulations on such a incredible 6-hour start on this Kickstarter. What are your thoughts so far? I'll let Francesco go.
Well, I'm absolutely, almost speechless because we had high expectations for that because, we worked so long and so hard on the project that we wanted to see if what we prepared for the project was going to connect with the fans. But not this way. It's really beyond any optimistical projection. So I'm humbled by the attention that we're getting. We must have done something right to deserve it, or maybe there's some punishment that awaits us in the future life.
You're scaring me.
Martin, when you were lining all this up, did you have any idea that this was going to be the reaction from folks? Have you had your pulse on the various communities that are?
I had inklings that this might be our biggest Kickstarter yet, but of course maybe not in quite this way because it's just it's a rocket keep going. So I'm just as Francesco said, I'm just humbled by the support and also just like the outpouring of people just seem so excited and they seem to like what we're doing and the style we're going for and the art. So it's just like fun to see how everyone is on the same page.
Absolutely. Now, this Kickstarter is funding two products. One is the Core Rulebook, and the other is a starter set. There's two versions of the Core Rulebook we'll mention. Let me just bring them up. You've got your basic version of the One Ring, which looks beautiful. It's got an amazing cover art from Martin Grip there that we are a huge fan of. And then there is a special edition, which just looks spectacular, and I know a lot of folks are big fans of this version already on Kickstarter. Who is in charge of the design of these books here? That
it's kind of it's really we tend to work. We're such a small core team. So we all tend to go. We have this like a little bull session where we kind of talk about stuff in general, and everyone is like free to just throw their hat into the ring and just talk about ideas. But in the end, it ended up being me, of course. Working on the project, and then we have Christian, who is our layout and graphic designer, and Martin Grip, of course. And we kind of just talked about the general aesthetic of the game, what we should go for. And we really wanted to go with the classic style of like Tolkien's own drawings, this kind of thing, And of course, So we wanted the special edition to have that kind of feel as well. So of course the red book felt like something to go for, that kind of style. So that's how that ended up. And of course Martin, we just told him, okay, so make a cover, and he did, and it came out like it did. And of course, yeah, I think people have seen made the connection, but this is the inspiration for the red ring, of course.
I love it, absolutely. Andreas, what did you think when you saw the products on? You're I know you're one of the biggest fans of this game there is. So what were your thoughts when you saw these plans that we have for this line?
Well, I wasn't surprised, because the first thing I thought when I talked to Martin and Nils, and I started to puzzle some pieces together, and then a few days after, this was a year ago, when the news hit that Free League was taken over, the first thing I said was, oh, please let Martin do a bunch of art for this. And of course Alvaro is going to do a bunch of art as well, which is also going to be amazing. But for me it was really like, oh, please let Martin just go all the way with this. And it's so I wasn't surprised, but I'm still extremely impressed.
And not only is are the covers and everything, but let's just take a look at the interior, like the layout of the book itself. Look at that, it's just beautiful. Like, that's amazing. Like that just looks beautiful. Like I don't know what else to say. Like I don't like. It looks like probably one of the best RPG books that, as far as layout and design is concerned, that I've ever seen. Now we also should mention that there is a starter set. So and I'm gonna just let everyone know that if anything that we're talking about, if you haven't already checked out the Kickstarter is in the link in the description of this video. This is going to be a great way for folks to start playing the One Ring and get started in it. And yeah, I just can't wait.
If we can say something about the two things, the two products, I think that the starter set compared to the core rulebook isn't simply a shortened version of the thing, like a taste of what you get in the core. It's really something that is it's in a way, it's a sort of a parallel thing.
Okay.
Because you get to play the game in a way that you won't experience in another way, because you're going to play only Hobbits. That's not completely real clear this way, because actually you can play also some other characters, but that's some sort of a surprise. So basically you play characters, pre-generated characters that are Hobbits from the stories. So you're playing Drogo Baggins, the father of Frodo Baggins, and Lobelia Baggins before she becomes Sackville Baggins, and so on. But the tone is really different, as you can expect, of course, from something that is set in the Shire, so the Shire of the Hobbits. To do this, we also hired a different writer, because the starter set is written primarily by James Michael Spann, who is as close as you can get to a real-life Hobbit. So he really gets the vibe perfectly, and it was, I mean, he himself described the project of the Hobbit, of the starter set, as the project of his life. So he poured everything into it, and I think he really succeeded in making it special. So if you get the two things, you have two ways to play the One Ring. And it occurs to me today, by reading some of the comments, that the starter set is also perfectly good to introduce players, younger players, for example.
Sure.
Because some of the more thematic, darker elements of the stories can be left out or only hinted at in the story, in the starter set. And we have adventures there that are Hobbit adventures, so they're less bloody, less violent than what you can get in other regions of
There
Middle.
are more sausages and more beer, maybe.
Yes.
Excellent. Let's. Do we just want to go? I mean, we've got about an hour. We've already 10 minutes in. Do we want to just start to answer on some questions? Because I have a feeling that no matter how long we go, it's not going to be long enough, so we might as well just get to some of the questions here. I will remind folks that if you have any questions, leave them in the chat, and we'll try to address them as much as we can. Here's a great question. Right. Jason Prince says, "Will you consider doing an expansion for the new Lord of the Rings TV series by Amazon?"
Well, I would personally consider it but that's something that probably is impossible because it's a matter of different licenses. The Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit license, a very complicated one, and the license that Amazon has comes from the Tolkien estate, that is a different entity from Middle-earth Enterprises, that is the other entity that is giving rights for games, for example. So no, for the moment it's not possible, but nobody will stop you from eventually taking inspiration from what they do. They're putting so much money, so much effort into that something good must come out of it, or at least we hope.
Lucas asks, "Will we see the same Kickstarter for Adventures in Middle Earth? Not sure what now to grab."
Yeah, that's. I mean, I know a lot of. I think a lot of the people watching now as well are wondering about Adventure in Middle Earth or like a 5e edition of the One Ring, and that is coming. I mean, we can. Yes, it is coming. We just need to do one thing at a time. If you're really invested in 5e and that's the game you want to play, then just hold on a little bit longer. But then again, if you don't feel like holding on, I mean, the One Ring is like specifically written for the setting. Give it a try.
Absolutely.
But yeah, of course, we are doing a 5e version. So yes, stay calm. It's coming.
All right. Will there be a physical copy of the art book? One of the stretch goals, of course, is a PDF art book of the amazing art that's in this book.
Yeah, so. I've seen already some people ask for that. I'm not sure, but I doubt it.
Okay. At least not probably not as part of the Kickstarter. I mean, perhaps something further on that we can publish as an actual book, but probably not as part of the Kickstarter.
Yeah, but I think there's one thing that we need to iron out, because the license is connected to gaming material. So a publication that is only images, that is not containing any gaming material, is probably out of the license. But we can explore, because it is considered connected to it, so it might be like an accessory, something like that.
Gotcha. Dave asks, "Can we get multiples of the starter set?" You can add them as you should be able to add them as add-ons. Add-ons. I couldn't think of the word for the life of me. You can just add it to your pledge level, and you'll also be able to add them in the backer kit as well, as far as the pledge manager once that.
Basically, the pledge manager will take care of all of these kind of things for you. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those strange peculiarities of Kickstarter that it makes everything seems very easy, and it's not, because it's not possible to be flexible about it. So you have to wait for the end of the campaign to be able to tweak your pledge.
Let's see here. Stephen asks, "Any plans for the Hobbit Tales 2nd edition?"
Possibly, can be explored. Hobbit Tales was a nice, let's say, parallel product that was a standalone game to the storytelling game, creating stories told by hobbits and inns after a pint or two. And the characteristic of the game is that it is composed of a big number of cards, and so they need artwork. And that's an expensive thing to do, especially for a small thing like that, because you probably need about 70, 80 different illustrations. And the ones from 1st edition are not available, so they would need to be redone completely. But it's something that we will discuss. Of course, everything was connected also on the success of the Kickstarter, because of course, the more success we get, the higher the possibility of doing more stuff.
Nathan has a great question. What is the biggest change from first edition to second edition?
That's a good question.
It is.
That's hard to say because there are many smaller changes, like handling differently the way that favored skills work or stuff like that. But that's minor stuff that people will just pick up very easily if they know the game already. The main change, I think, is that the game is much tighter. One of the complaints that people had about first edition was that the game had many loose ends, many different articulations, different ways to do things. The game still attempts to do several things because it still wants to have your games play around these pillars like journeys, councils, and combat, and so on. But every mechanic has been, polished finally to the way that everything works much better together. And so the mechanics feel less like different things put together, but like very close things. I think that's the main question, but the main consideration. But the question was hard because there's not something. I mean, we're not changing the way that dice work, or we're not using new dice. So there's nothing as big as that.
I know it's been asked a few times on the Kickstarter and in various posts. Are there any plans to release this in any other languages besides English, Swedish, Italian? I know where it was asked a couple times. Are there any plans for any other languages?
Yes, there will probably be other. I think there's already been a Spanish company have been making an announcement, but I think that's actually not handled by Sophisticated Games, which is a license holder. So,
okay.
But I think we're going to see things. Yes,
I can anticipate that the confirmed languages are already Italian and Spanish.
Excellent.
Italian by Need Games and Spanish by Devere. I'm 99% sure that Edge will do it in France, and let's move. There's more, but right now I can't think of the companies that are doing it. But Sophisticated Games is handling this, and there will be several adaptations.
Excellent. So we have Andreas here with us, and there seems to be some sort of multiple questions. There's a question that keeps popping up about a soundtrack, and I think if I don't pop it up on here, I think we're probably going to see a revolt. Do you know anything about a soundtrack? That's people are wondering if that's even possible.
There are a couple of tricky issues that we are trying to solve right now. One of the tricky issues is the musical score. So it's part of the plan, but it's not confirmed yet.
Yeah, I've been keeping my eye. I'm trying to. That's why I've been looking slightly zoomed out. I've been trying to keep an eye on the chat here as well. Mm-hmm. And I was on Discord earlier today. Of course, we talked a bit about Middle-earth. Hobbit Tales is being sold at ridiculous second-hand prices. So I mean, financially, I'm not sure it would be such a bad idea, even though it would be expensive to produce. But there was a question about the community content that is for other Free League games. If this will be included there.
It's a bit like Alien. That's always more tricky when it's a licensed game like this. So
I assume
I'm not saying like it's impossible, but it's something we really have to look carefully at and see if there's any possibility to do that. But that'll come later in that case.
And I have to apologize beforehand because I had a full schedule all day, so I haven't had time to actually look at the Kickstarter. So if I'm asking a very obvious question where the answer is in the Kickstarter, you'll just have to smack me on the back of the head and say, Andreas, read the Kickstarter. But there are some questions about the magical results from Die Roll. It's
That's
been
a good
popping
one.
up both in Discord and here, so I was going to ask about that.
Okay, that's a relatively young addition to the game mechanics of the game, because it was a sort of one of those moments when you suddenly see there's an easy way to do something that seemed complicated first. And as fans of the previous iteration of the game know, abilities and talents that can be considered magical, that are available to player characters, were handled mainly through special abilities called virtues in the game. So every culture available to be played in the game had its own specific and unique virtues that handled stuff like hobbits being very stealthy and stuff like this. Of course, it was not really possible to box everything in the same way, especially for particular creatures like elves, for example. How can you? I mean, we couldn't do a single virtue for every specific ability of the elves or hobbits or dwarves. So there was. Oh, actually, we were trying to, but we were falling short with the previous attempt. So now there is a mechanic that is part of the fundamental mechanics of the game that is applied on top of the usual action resolution rules that in the game allows you to find out if you are succeeding in an action, something like that. You have different levels of success. And that's handled like in the past, especially using our own custom dice that have an icon on the 6. So if you know how to play the game, you know what I'm talking about. But there's now another level that is called the magical result. It's something that was briefly hinted at in the rules for wondrous items that we had in the past, magical items that were able to do this. So if you, for example, were wearing an elven cloak, you could hide even in plain sight, for example, not exactly like this, but almost in plain sight, something that would not have been possible without the magical thing. So this is now applicable to a lot of different talents that can be natural to different types of player characters. So elves, for example, have a number of skills that they can use that are able to trigger magical results. And this worked simply like, something that suddenly made everything easy, because it's easy to have elves able to run on a rope, on a bridge of rope from one side to the other of a river, or to walk on snow without falling, like if it was sand, like Tolkien describes, or being able to withstand severe weather condition and stuff like this. So, but that's not only limited to elves. There are other player character types that are actually able to do things that appear as magical to the others through the rules for magical results.
All right, so kind of like the old skill of the Eldar for the high elves.
Yeah, and that's brought to the general mechanics of the game.
All right, okay. Next question maybe for Martin, more than Francesco, about digital, like virtual tabletop support for all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the past year has made us all into online RPG players. I've been playing Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th edition on Foundry for the past year. It's been a blast. So of course this is something we're looking at. We're still need to be again very considerate about what the license, what it allows us to do and stuff like that. But it's something we absolutely want to do. And if as soon as we can do it, as soon we'll tell you all about it. But at the moment we're kind of waiting and seeing and exploring our options basically. So I don't have a firm answer on that quite yet.
How about, may I take just one more before I start scrolling the chat again? It's about converting the old first edition cultures. Because there are many campaigns out there where people have their characters and they want to play the new version, the second edition, of course, because it's much better. And but they want to keep their old characters. So what is the time schedule for some kind of like conversion PDF, or will you do them piece by piece on upcoming supplements, or?
No, the idea is to the core rulebook right now has 6 playable cultures. Some of them have been used already before. Some are all of them were seen before between the core rules of first edition and supplements like the Adventurer's Companion. But we took the chance to overhaul most of the components that made a playable culture. I've seen that some of the fans here are asking, for example, if some of the abilities have been toned down because they were too powerful, or vice versa. We did exactly that. We had a very close look at how all the special abilities worked to try and achieve 2 things. Balance, from the point of view of not balancing, meaning making all the cultures of the same level of power. That was not the point. The point was to make all the abilities being interesting for players to choose. Otherwise, if you have a number of very weak abilities, nobody's going to choose them, and every character will look the same because they get the same abilities. So we did that to make them all interesting from the game mechanics point of view. But the other thing that we did was to have a very close look at the type of characters that all those abilities together created, and changed several of them to get a clearer idea of what it means, for example, to be a hobbit or to be a dwarf. So we found, I think, a much better mix of abilities for every culture, that when you will read them, you will say, oh, okay, that's why this is a dwarf, and that's an elf, and that's a barding, and that's a hobbit. Because all the abilities are very distinctive, very unique. And so that's the main hurdle in adapting your characters to the new ones, because some of them are very close to the old ones. So the ones that we consider to be the best were kept, the most effective and most suggestive of the type of character. But we changed those that were considered broken or lame. So there will be a level of rewriting your old characters. Unfortunately, that's the highest price in the conversion between the new edition and the previous one. Of course, you won't have any problems if you will just switch to play a different character, but there will be a level of adaptation if you want to keep playing the same one. I think most players will be happy to switch because the vast majority of the characters are much cooler now. So, so I think they'll be happy to.
Nice. Let's see here. Could you talk more about the landmarks format mentioned in the Kickstarter?
Okay. Landmarks were a solution to a problem I always had with role-playing games in general. The way that playable material is presented to the players and to the game masters. I like source books. I like adventures, everything, but I find sometimes that source books that only present plain text to describe the places, locations, and stuff of a game world are too dry and require too much work from the lore master and the players to bring them alive. So what we are looking for with the landmarks is to solve this. And we were, now working with Free League, we could borrow some concepts from their games without feeling like, thieves, because they're bad. So landmarks are basically what adventure sites are in Forbidden Lands. They are self-contained adventure capsules with everything from what you hear of a place, the description of the location, the type of people you can or denizens you can find, and the type of things that can happen there. So it's not simply a description of a ruined castle on the hills of Rudahor. It's going to be a specific ruined castle on the hilltop of Rudahor with some reason why you should go there. These are landmarks in a nutshell.
Excellent. Yeah, I love the way that works in Forbidden Lands. So it's really going to be awesome to see this implemented for the One Ring. Elwing asks, so can we expect more stretch goals? You kind of ran out of them in a jiffy. I think, Martin, you might be able to answer this question.
There will be more stretch goals, but yeah, as you said, you're just too eager. You're just too many. It's like where the poor orcs see besieging in Gondor, and there's just an army of undead soldiers crushing us. So which is fun. I mean, I like being crushed by ghosts. So we're very happy about this, but we need to kind of look over how we plan things and rejig a few things. But yes, there are more things coming for sure. Absolutely. Stay calm.
There are a lot of questions about people wanting to know some more info on the rules, how they work for people who are not familiar with the first edition. So, the rules are so similar that they've stayed so much the same that if people aren't that if people are anxious to get going, maybe they can listen to some podcasts or look at some streams that I've played the game for years and learn a bit from them. I find that to be an excellent way of learning a system, because when you get your magnificent second edition book, you will be well prepared and you will know basically everything that is written there. So.
Also, you said that in future updates, Kickstarter updates, you'll have more in-depth details on some of the rules and some of the changes and how them and everything works as well.
Yeah, because I noticed there are, of course, many rules questions, which is natural. It's just we could sit here all night and just explain like tiny little differences and how this cool thing works now. But we'll have updates and go like deep diving into like how the new journal rules are different from the old ones, or how councils work, stuff like that. Because there are, I mean, the core is still the same. You still have the D12 feat die, and you have your D6s pool, and you roll them and you add them up. But then there's just like a lot of small little changes that makes it, as Francesco said, it feels more cohesive, and it's just smoother in play, basically. But yeah, we're going to have some. We're going to look a bit more in depth on things for sure. And as you say, if you're really curious about the One Ring, if you check out something for the first edition, most of it, or like the feel of it, are similar, as at least the core. But things like journeys and the stuff have been updated quite a bit.
Yes.
So we haven't even finished the Core Rulebook Kickstarter and the starter set, and already we're getting this question, and I think that this is probably a good question to ask anyway. Are there any plans on how future products will look like? Example, a region book, a related adventure book. Is that already on everybody's radar as far as now that we've seen that the community and folks are very behind the One Ring from Free League?
Well, it's early days, but of course we have plans laid out and we have things in the work. It's a bit early, possibly, in the Kickstarter to say too much about this now.
Sure.
But I think that, one thing that is not there, and it's not going to be there, is how we will handle what Andreas asked before. So how we will handle character cultures that are not in the core. And one thing I really would like to do as soon as possible is to make at least a beta version of the different character cultures that we had in the past in the new second edition version, so that players that have those character cultures will be able to convert them to the new game. But the way that we reworked the different abilities and stuff is probably the lengthiest process for us to design. So because we don't want, of course, to have you play a character type that feels bad, that feels weak, or feels lame, or feels not suggestive enough of the source material. So we want them all to be absolutely perfect for your gaming needs. So it's impossible to just put out them like that very fast and very easily. So we will try to do that, possibly sharing earlier a playtest version of those additional character cultures, so that you might help us fixing them or reaching the final version. But the idea is then to compile them all in a sort of a adventure companion with all the other character classes.
No, one of the stretch goals for Twilight 2000 that was very well received was a solo mode. And Pete A asks, is there a solo mode considered for this game?
It's something we've been thinking about and talking about. I mean, solo gaming has been on the rise, I think, again, because of something going on. I'm not quite sure what. But also with the success of games like Ironsworn and stuff. So, and I think, I think a solo mode for the One Ring could probably work pretty well, especially since like again, journeys and councils with important people are formalized in a certain way. You could probably do that. So again, it's something we'd like to do. Yeah,
we call it the Aragorn mode.
Yeah, Strider mode.
I love it.
But to this, I mean, since we were talking about playing with less players, one of the concerns that we had in the past was that the game was built around a troop-style game, so where you have more characters. We also tried to make all the mechanics of the game work equally well with less characters if you had a smaller company of heroes. Of course, the focus is still that. It's the fellowship. So it's the idea of having people working together to the same end. But we try to make it at least feasible to play with less players. So to have a couple of characters going out and just them having adventures.
Dave asks a question for miniatures. Not for gameplay, but for presentation. Maybe during a game. Is that
again? It's like licensing.
It's a license that
should have a sign
firmly in the hands of a company called Games Workshop.
A small company, you don't know them.
Making miniatures. I mean, you can buy their miniatures and use them in our game.
Absolutely, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. Absolutely.
Or getting the old Mithril ones.
Yeah,
or some good other types of miniatures like Anglo-Saxons and stuff like that. But unfortunately, I don't think that's something that will be. I mean, just to go a little bit further into that, there's a miniature game license, and then that's with Games Workshop, and then you can have board games with figures. But then again, they need to have a board and stuff like that. So it's not the role-playing game license.
Richard asks, will the what it got in its pockets system return for the core rulebook? My group literally spent a half a session rolling for gear because it was so fun.
Yeah, that was a funny addition into the Adventurers Companion that was really neat. I'll take the chance to say that we're not using anything that appeared in the previous edition in the same form. We're not allowed to, and we don't want to. Also because you might already have it. So why should we give it to you again? That's not going to appear in that shape. We have an actual rule for additional gear in the game that is called the useful items. So there's you start the game with a number of additional items in your possession depending on your standard of living, and those items are actually usable, meaning that they give you practical bonuses when you use them. You can change them every time you set up on an adventure phase, but so it's more of a thing that has a mechanical element to it. If you have the old Adventurer's Companion, you can use what they have in your pockets tables to generate your useful items for second edition.
Let's see. CT says past 500K on the Kickstarter. Thank you.
Dollars, I presume, or
I'm assuming it's not backers. I don't think it's backers. That would be amazing, but no,
it definitely isn't Swedish kroner.
Yeah. Congratulations to everyone. Thank you, everyone, for that's watching that supported the Kickstarter. We greatly appreciate it.
There was a clarification on the question about upcoming supplements. I think whoever asked it wanted more to know, like, will it be region guides and more like adventure campaign books like that?
I'm wary to answer this because it's part of the Kickstarter.
Okay.
All right. That's fine. No,
I can. I mean, at least to give you something as an answer. I think, Martin, we can say that Moria is in the works. We said it in other occasions, but Garrett Hanran is mostly halfway through with it, and so. Yeah, it's coming.
It's coming, yeah. That's gonna be fun.
Absolutely. CA Berlitz says Golem mode. That's the suggestion for
yeah. Okay, so we have Strider mode and Golem mode. That's good.
Yeah, you accumulate enough shadow, you pass directly from Aragorn mode to Golem mode.
Yeah.
You need to find a hole to dig yourself into and just stay underground for 30 years.
I'll say the starter edition, the starter kit edition of playing Lobelia and Drogo, it just blew my mind completely when I first heard about it. I was amazed. Wow, just wow. To be sitting there on the river on that boat with your wife and wondering, will she push me over or not?
Yeah, that's the something that we find really interesting and fun with the One Ring is to look for all those tiny scraps of gray area that Tolkien leaves in his writings, and think that you can play up that to something. So we interpreted in some ways some hints in the first chapter of The Lord of the Rings that Drogo Baggins might have been up to something in his younger days. And so you will play that. You will decide what Drogo Baggins was up to. And not only him, but also Paladin Took and other notables from the Shire.
Amazing.
Hector has a good question. Francesco, what is your favorite part of the updated design? What is your favorite part?
Well, I'm tempted to say that the graphical approach of the game, and that's absolutely not to disrespect what we had before, because of course I loved our previous edition of the game and the great artists that worked on it. But after such a long time and having seen the game and the line like that, I didn't even know that I was waiting for something really different to come. And so when Free League gave me the chance to work with people like Alvaro Tapia, Martin Grepa, and Christian Granat, and also Jan Pospisil, who worked already in first edition also. It was something that I wasn't totally anticipating. And when I saw, for example, when I saw the cover by Martin, I was really like moved, because to me it was like I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know that they were attempting something like that, so I never discussed anything with them about the cover. So when I saw the painting, it looked like a movie of the Lord of the Rings, but out of my mind instead of from a director. So it was something that's so epic and cool. So that's something that really made the new edition for me, because I was so afraid that it couldn't follow on the footsteps of what we had before, because it was so good and it worked so well with my ideas of how the game should have been. And instead we did it again. It's something that is so good that I'm speechless.
Jens asks, how many dice set do you need with 4 players? I haven't not played the first edition, and the rest of the Free League games, you need like a set per player to be really smooth. Is it the same with the One Ring?
When you talk about dice, to me, I'm like, I'm like a dragon hoarding.
You never have enough, right?
You don't have an idea of how many dice sets I have.
But it can be
each
worth.
player needs every set of dice that have ever been made for this game. I mean, it's
But
It can be worth noting, though. Yeah,
but actually, one set is enough. I mean, we designed all. I mean, of course, if you don't mind giving the dice across the table, because you will need a set every time, but you're rolling between 2 dice to 7 dice. Very exceptionally, you can roll more. So the dice set is 6 success dice plus 1 fit dice. So it's what you need. Of course, it's going to be much comfortable for everyone if everyone has its own, or if at least if you have a set close by. But so for me, more dice, more fun.
Absolutely.
Please wait with sharing dice until the pandemic is over.
That too. Yes, that's very very true. The Once in Future Jake asks, with the look of the stance cards, how has stances changed for second edition?
Well, actually, Christian and Martin made the stance card like I did a mock-up many years back. So it's very close. I mean, the general idea is the same. The differences are in the way bonuses you get from your stance in combat work, because we changed completely the way your target numbers are generated in the game. Previously, stances like forward, open, defensive, and rearward told you the number you had to match or overcome with your attacks, modified by the parry rating of the adversary. Now, that's not the case anymore. Stances, they don't tell you the target number. They give you or not an advantage or a disadvantage when you attack. So when you're in a forward stance, you get bonus dice. When you are in defensive stance, you lose dice and your opponents gain dice. So it's reflexive again, but in a different way. So, but for the rest, they're the same. They tell you the order of resolution, and they tell you the type of the combat tasks that you can do. Players of the One Ring know what this means, that you can intimidate your enemies if you're in a forward stance. You can protect a companion if you're in a defensive stance. You can attack and be attacked only with ranged weapons if you're in a rearward stance. So that basically is the same, but the bonuses, the way are computed, is different.
Marco has a very nice comment. This is Francesco. I just want to say that you are absolutely one of my favorite game designers ever. And knowing that you are working with Free League, one of the best RPGs companies ever, makes me so happy. It makes us very happy as well, Marco. But yes, I think that's
Can
very
I
nice.
say something?
Absolutely.
If there's a thing that I think was received well by the public with this Kickstarter, is the perception that we had when we got together, me and Martin and me and Marco, my co-designer, and Free League, that we found the right home for the game, that everything clicked together perfectly. It was not simply a company that was buying the license to do the game, but it was a synergy that was going to happen and was going to work so fittingly with what we were designing. So I think that what is going on with the Kickstarter is possibly telling us that the impression that we personally had was right, and people is seeing that the game and the company, the designer and the company and everything is so sitting right next to the other in a very, I don't know, comfortable way. So I think that was really very lucky. We had a lucky encounter, putting together the game and the company.
We seem to be on the same wavelength when it comes to thinking about mechanics and setting and Tolkien and all of it. So yeah, feels like a good fit.
That's always great when that happens. Let's see here.
If you're on the same page as Francesco when it comes to Tolkien, then you're on the right page.
That's right. Any other dice colors or materials planned? Are there any plans for, I guess, any dice? I guess we could probably just ask the dice colors. Is probably a good question.
Yeah, there might be. I mean, with the speed things are going, I think you'll know sooner or later. But there are plans. Yeah.
Ping asks, what creatures, monsters are in the core rulebook?
Well, it's a pretty long list, so I don't know if well, by now you know that we also have nameless creatures in the adversary chapter of the game, because they're being unlocked exactly with the first batch of Kickstarter of stretch goals. And that's a fun part, because we had something like that for dragons in the past, and instead of telling you, the players, what are nameless creatures, where not even Tolkien described them, because I mean you have only a few examples, like the Watcher in the Water, for example. We instead decided to give the players the opportunity to create their own. So you're going to be able to mix and match parts and abilities and stuff to create something really horrible and challenging for the players. In the same way that instead of inventing new dragons, simply inventing new dragons out of whole cloth, we decided to give the fans the possibility to create their own, and we will do that again, not in the core, because their dragons are not there. So that's I can say. We continued as far as word count and stuff was concerned to bring in and out adversaries. So I'm not exactly 100% sure what's in and what's out. But I think that possibly, since we're in Eriador, if you can think of a creature, we have it, because with the Misty Mountains there close by. Possibly the only exception would be spiders. I think we have a lot more. We have more creatures than what they go there, and we are not putting them in if they're not part of the Eriador landscape. So spiders probably are not there. Sorry, I didn't answer your question exactly, but it gave you enough information.
Go not to an elf for counsel, for he will say both yes and no.
Yeah. Attila asks, if someone never read the novels or played first edition, how much world overview is included in the core rulebook?
Well, I always hold the conviction that if you never play the game, the less you know, the better it is. Because what we really hope to accomplish with the game is to give you the perspective of someone who's living in Middle Earth and didn't simply read all the books from the Silmarillion to Unfinished Tales and the history of Middle Earth, and so knows everything about the flight of the elves and whatever. So we think that the best way to enjoy the game is to try and be as much as immersed in the character as you can. So if you don't know much about it, you're going for a lot of surprises. So it's better that way. We have information in the core that is more than enough to start, but never forget that the best source books available are the books by J.R. Tolkien himself. What we are really trying to do with the rules of the game is to give you the tools to do stuff. We don't want to provide you with everything that is our interpretation of things. We would like to have people actually taking straight from the sources and using the rules to adapt the sources to their games. So you have a lot of ways to play the game, even without buying a single additional book, supplement, not book, additional supplement of the game. But rest assured that there's enough there, because there's information about the playable cultures, information about the places where they come from, and information about the area of Old Arnor, let's say, that is the most interesting part of the Eriador region that is going to be explored by the characters.
Well, we are almost out of time. We've got 3 minutes left. I'm going to take this one question from Anna. She says, Martin and Francesco, what is the best thing with getting to work with the One Ring? What do you enjoy the most? Martin, I'll let you go first, and then we'll close that up with Francesco.
Yeah, I don't know. It's apart from just having fun and working with a great team, which is always like in any work, it feels like the most important bit. But apart from that, I think it's just taking a part of my childhood and just being able to influence how it works and then have people experience that kind of. Which is I mean, since I grew up with reading Tolkien when I was early teens, and the Bakshi movie, I mean, the VHS of that was like worn thin. So yeah, so much fun just being able to dive into this world and kind of contribute in small places here and there and make little like suggestions, like maybe we should do it this way, and then it goes that way, and then it's just fun and exciting. So I think that's so cool. And then you'll have people out there, all of you people there will play this game and just experience and have fun. So yeah, I think that's just amazing. Really, yeah.
All right. The man himself. What is your favorite aspect of working with the One Ring?
Well, I think that is the challenge of making a playable game out of a world that many people consider unplayable. And it took a lot of effort, a lot of research and everything. Luckily, I was already working on games based on Lord of the Rings before I approached designing the One Ring. But that was really my main goal, and I still enjoy every moment where I can find something in an approach, in a mechanic that rings true to the sources. One of the things that I really like, that I love when people say it, and luckily many people did say that, is that when they go back to reading The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings, everything makes sense to them, in terms of the gameplay, because they recognize the words, the way they were used in the game, and now the words in the book resonate even more with them because they have an actual play parallel. So when they hear words about valor and hope, and we combed the pages of The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings so tightly and continuously to really absorb the language and use it properly in the game, that everything is there when you read the One Ring, and especially you read the character sheet. I don't think there's a word there that doesn't appear in the Lord of the Rings. We try to make sure of that nothing in the game sounds too modern or out of place. So that's really my main satisfaction, the fact of finding ways that will make people say, "Oof, that's really the Lord of the Rings."
I love it. And based on the response, I think everyone loves it as well. And I want to thank everyone that tuned in, that asked questions. Hopefully we answered most of the questions. If we didn't answer a question, hopefully you can watch the session from the beginning and have your question answered. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave them in the Kickstarter. I'll remind folks that if you haven't already checked out the Kickstarter, please check out the link in the description of this video and take a look at the Kickstarter that just launched this morning, and it's just been exciting to see. I want to thank Francesco, Martin, and Andreas. Thank you, guys, gentlemen. Thank you so much for being a part of this session. Very excited to see where these next few days are gonna lead us, and I think it's only going to be great things. Andreas, if folks want to see more of you, they should probably check out Sweden Rolls, your podcast, and I hear you're going to probably be streaming some stuff here soon as well.
Ooh, is that out?
I don't know. Maybe I heard that somewhere.
Riddles in the Dark, the podcast, is slightly delayed and is transforming into a stream instead. So we'll have to wait a few more months for that.
Very good. And if folks want to know more from Martin and from Francesco, I'm going to say that you're probably pretty busy in the comments of the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Try to follow as much as possible. Possibly not later today, but tomorrow again, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, it's getting late over here, but yeah.
Oh, great. Well, folks, like I said, if folks have any other questions, feel free to check out the Kickstarter. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. This has been our session, our Q&A of the One Ring.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks also everyone who backed the game. And as you know, they really blew it out of the park. And then it's something that we didn't expect to be as successful as it is. Thank you, Doug. And
absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for giving your time. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Let us know in the comments if you're as excited as we are.